Hey, blues fans. Glad you made it. Time for another episode of This Week in the Blues. It's our weekly take on blues history. I'm your host, Jimbo Big Train Madsen, with Big Train and the Locomotives. Their motives are loco, and that's how they got their name. Anyway, let's take a look and see what happened this week in blues history. Let's start with Piedmont blues guitarist and mandolin player Floyd Council, who was born on September 2nd in 1911. He was known as the Devil's Daddy-in-Law. Born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina in the late 1920s and 30s, he and Blind Boy Fuller played on street corners in the area. Council recorded twice at sessions with Fuller in the mid-1930s. Now, one bit of trivia. An English band got their name from the liner notes of a 1962 album by Blind Boy Fuller. Credited there are the names of South Carolina bluesman Pink Anderson and Floyd Council, and Pink Floyd was born. Memphis Slim was born September 3rd in 1915. He was an amazingly prolific artist who ranks with the greatest blues pianist of all time. He was smart enough to take Big Bill Broonzy's early advice about developing a style to call his own to heart, instead of imitating his idol, Roosevelt Sykes. Sometime in the late 30s, he moved from Memphis to Chicago and began recording in 1939 for several local labels there. Blues guitarist Charlie Booker was born September 3rd in 1925. He was mostly active around central Mississippi in the 1940s and early 50s and learned to play guitar from his uncle, who had played with Charlie Patton. In 1947, he moved to Greenville, Mississippi, where he worked with the pianist Willie Love and also met or worked with Elmore James, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Milton, Ike Turner, and Houston Boynes. Blues guitarist Freddie King was born September 3rd in 1934. He is one of the three kings of blues guitar, along with Albert King and B.B. King. His soulful and powerful voice and distinctive guitar playing had a major influence on electric blues music and on many later blues guitarists. He got his break with the single and eventual blues standard, Have You Ever Loved a Woman?, which reached number 5 on Billboard magazine's Rhythm and Blues charts in 1961. Texas blues guitarist U.P. Wilson was born September 4th, 1934, on a farm near Shreveport, Louisiana, and later lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He learned the blues from Catman Fleming and Frankie Lee Sims. Never a full-time musician, from 1967 onward, he raised his family and worked as a school janitor. At night, Wilson performed as a sideman in local nightclubs, where they attracted crowds of Texas blues fans. By 1987, Wilson had begun recording and touring around Texas. Boogie-woogie pianist Meade Lux Lewis was born September 4th in 1905. Along with boogie-woogie pianist Albert Ammons and Pete Johnson, they helped start the boogie-woogie craze. He played regularly in Chicago in the late 20s, and his one solo record of the time, Honky Tonk Train Blues, recorded in 1927, is still considered a classic. Over time, Lewis slipped into obscurity. Record producer John Hammond found Lewis washing cars for a living in Chicago. Soon Lewis was back on records and was able to work steadily. September 5th, 1923, marks the birthday of blues guitarist Zuu Bolan, who was born in Frisco, Texas. The name Zuu is believed to refer to a brand of ginger snap cookies popular at the time. In 1951, Bolan recorded Why Don't You Eat Where You Slept Last Night and Headlight Blues, and variously worked along Duke Robillard, Doug Sam, Booker Ervin, Percy Mayfield, and David Fathead Newman. On September 5th, 1977, Blind Willie Johnson and Chuck Berry were shot into space, never to return to Earth. Well, at least their music was. Voyager 1 space probe, launched by NASA, included a variety of world music and samples of the human voice. The Blind Willie Johnson song included Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground. The inclusion of Berry's Johnny B. Good was controversial, with some claiming that rock music was adolescent, to which Carl Sagan replied, "There are a lot of adolescents on the planet." Blues pianist Sunnyland Slim was born September 5th in 1906 in the Mississippi Delta. He adopted his colorful stage name from the title of one of his best-known songs, the mournful Sunnyland Train. After entertaining juke joints in the Delta, Slim made Memphis his home base during the late 20s, playing along Beale Street and hanging out with the likes of Little Brother Montgomery and Ma Rainey. And later, he moved to Chicago, helping make that city a center of post-war blues. Slim moved to Chicago in '39 and set up shop as an in-demand piano player. Slim was the one that introduced Muddy Waters to the folks at Chess Records. September 6, 1925 is the birthday of the great Jimmy Reid in Dunleith, Mississippi. His particular style of electric blues was popular with a variety of audiences in the 50s and 60s. Reid's songs such as Honest I Do, Baby What You Want Me to Do, Big Boss Man, Bright Lights, Big City. They all appeared on both Billboard magazine's Rhythm and Blues and Hot 100 singles charts. He had a singing style like no one else because when he sang, he would slur his words. One music critic referred to it as singing with a mouthful of marbles. September 6 in 1926 is the birthday of blues drummer Frederick Bell Jr. He's best known for his work with Little Walter and Chess Records in the 1950s. Bello was a creator of much of the rhythmic structure of Chicago blues, especially its backbeat. In 1955, he started working as a session musician for Chess Records. He played on hit records for Little Walter, Junior Wells, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Jimmy Rogers, Elmore James, Otis Rush, Howlin' Wolf, and many, many others. Among his more famous work, he played on Chuck Berry's recordings, including Roll Over Beethoven, Rock and Roll Music, and Sweet Little 16. Well, blues fans, this was certainly a full episode, and we just covered some of the highlights here. Now, if you want to know more about these artists or other things that happened this week in the blues, be sure to follow our social media pages or visit our website at bigtrainblues.com. We'll have a new episode next week, so we'll see you then.